Well, I promised in the video that I was going to show you how we got this prop off, and as I said that I'd made the puller and I thought I'd just give it a quick go, and it popped off, and I hadn't had chance to get the camera set up or anything. So we've decided that we'll re-record it and show you exactly how to get the prop off, because this can be a big problem. Reason we need to get the prop off was I wanted to replace the cutlass bearing inside this P bracket. And to do that, you have to get the shaft out. The shaft will just go past the rudder, but not with the prop on. So the prop has to come off. Invariably, they get very tight. Okay, so this is where I'm going to show you how to make a puller to pull the prop off, just using a few bits of rusty old metal, a few bits of nuts and bolts, some screwed rod, and any old car jack. It doesn't have to be a hydraulic jack, although if you can get a little hydraulic jack like this, so much the better. Screwed rod, you can get that anywhere. It's for nothing, it's peanuts. Same with the nuts that you'll need for it. I've used 12mm or 1/2 inch if you're in Imperial land, and the bits of metal just laying around. And I've made one which is where the jack will sit up against, so that takes the 3 studs running forward, and it just has to be some sort of base that the jack can sit on. This was just a piece of angle iron that I had in the scrap bar, which was the right size. It doesn't have to be a piece of angle iron. This could be a plate if you had a plate big enough. It can be anything. That's the whole point of this. You're making something out of just bits of scrap you've got laying around. The bit that goes the other end, behind the prop, has to be in 3 pieces, because you have to put it together behind the prop. And basically it just goes together like that. And there's a rough cut out hole in the middle, this little section in here. Just cut that out with a grinder to give me clearance around the shaft. And the distance of these holes, it's not crucial, but you have to, if it's a 3-bladed prop, you have to have 3 points. If it's a 2-bladed prop, you could do it with 4 points, like that, and 4 bits of steel. So it's easy to produce. So let me show you now how it works. So the first thing to do is you have to remove whatever's locking the prop into place. And on this particular unit, we have a split pin through the end of the shaft, a locking nut and a main nut. So the first job here is to take the split pin out. Sometimes these can be a bit of a pain to get out, but basically you just have to compress it and push it through. And the straighter you can get it, the easier it comes through until it comes out. Ideally put a new one on. Okay, so once you've got the split pin out, or it may be a bolt going into the centre of the shaft, which is a locking bolt. Once you've got that out, you need to release the locking nut. And I did this up fairly tight. Locking nut comes off. That can come right out the way. Then undo the main nut. Now, a little tip here, don't take the nut right off. The shaft is on a taper, and there's a taper inside the propeller, and all you have to do is break the taper. It only has to move a fraction of an inch or a fraction of a millimetre backwards to release. If you take the nut right off, when it releases, the whole thing will come crashing down. The prop, you damage the prop, you could damage yourself. So just leave the nut on. When the prop releases, it won't fall off, and then you can take it off in a controlled manner. Right, now this bit is a bit tricky. You need 10 hands to do everything up and get it all in place. Basically, we have the 3 loose pieces of metal which go behind the prop, and they have to be threaded over the studding, which runs through the 3 holes. I've just got one more piece to put in, which will hopefully go in fairly easily. When you're doing these things, it never seems to go to plan when someone's watching you. Okay, so now we have the back ready. 3 pieces of metal held together at the 3 points with the 3 bits of studding. If you had a 2-bladed prop, you'd rig it slightly differently, probably 2 bits of metal with 4 bits of studding. So now we have to go to the other side of the prop where we put the jack in, and then we can just release the prop. Right, so this is our jack. This is any old car jack. This one has quite a big base, and what I had to do was drill a hole in there so I could get the 3 holes to correspond. I just made sure that I actually drilled through the base here and not any part of the jack, and that's been quite useful because that enables me just to slide the jack in place and it's held there. The next thing is to put our foot bracket on. Ignore this bit of metal here. It can be any old piece of metal, doesn't have to have a hole in the middle. I quickly just grabbed 3 bits of scrap out the stock bin and welded it together. So that, we'll put it the right way round. That bit actually causes a bit of a problem, but never mind. So that goes behind the jack, and then we feed the last 2 bits of studding in, and this is where you need 10 pairs of hands. The next thing to do is to take our nuts. These are just ordinary mild steel nuts, mild steel studding, nothing special. We're going to put a nut on each piece of stud behind the foot bracket and behind the bracket at the front end of the propeller. Okay, so it takes a little bit of time to get the nuts up the shaft, up the piece of screwed studding. I could have cut these to length, but I just wanted to keep them full length because they're going to go back in my scrap bin to be used for other projects, other bits and pieces. There's no point in cutting them off. And in actual fact, in this instance, it's been quite useful to have this top one over length. I don't know if Ali can move the camera around, but I'm cheating a bit here because we have this lovely stand and that top stud is resting on that stand. You might not have that luxury. You may be able to rig something up just to hold that piece of top studding up, but it's definitely working for me at the moment. So that's the top one in. Got to do the next 2. Okay, so that's our 3 nuts on at the back and 3 nuts at the front. If you think that it's going to be difficult to get a prop off, then you can always run 3 more nuts at front and back to back these nuts up. So you could put another nut on there, bring that up, and what that does, that'll increase the amount of thread that the nuts are pushing against, which will make the whole thing much stronger. So if you're finding that you're struggling to get the prop off, and sometimes these props can be really tough to get off, it may be worthwhile putting extra nuts on. For purposes of this demonstration, I'm hoping that comes off easy because it's only just been put back on, which I know is cheating, but as I said before, it came off so easy when I did this last time, I sort of missed it all on camera. Anyway, that said, I've just finger tightened these up so that I can get the jack up in line with the end of the shaft. Then all you do, and this is where I keep my fingers crossed and hope this works, is just pump the jack up very slightly, trying to keep it level and straight. Make sure everything, this one here wants doing up a bit, the jack started to lift at the bottom, so I just slightly tighten these up. And I might just release the top until I keep the jack in line with the shaft. And as you put little bits of pressure on, you might just have to keep adjusting. You don't want the jack to suddenly go in one direction or another, and you can control it fairly well with the 3 lots of studs. And there it goes. And that made everybody jump. That was actually on a lot tighter than before. As I said, we purchased a puller before, which destroyed itself, so it might have actually started to make the prop move. But this will definitely get it off. I should have brought the bigger handle for the jack. But there you go. That's how you can get the prop off, just using some bits and pieces that you can find laying around in the scrap bin. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up for the video, subscribe and hit the little bell icon to see all the rest of the videos that we'll be doing, and follow us here on YouTube as we go into the final weeks getting ready to launch early September and start heading south and then west across the Atlantic to South America. See you all again soon.